my history here. It is. So we would like to make this a tradition, so thank you all for coming. We'd also like to thank the South Brunswick Education Association for providing refreshments. If you didn't get any, then after the meeting, feel free if you'd like some water or coffee or apple cider, I think it is. And thank you to all of our candidates for coming tonight. I know it was short notice, but we did what we could, and we want to welcome you. And you started off, Johnny?
Yep.
So, okay, we're live streaming on Facebook. This is new, so hopefully this records, I think, and you can watch it again later. So just a few ground rules. There was some ground rules in the back. There's also some yellow slips of paper in the back. And if you have any questions for the candidates that you'd like to ask, if you want to write them here on the back and then pass them up to me, then we can review them and ask the candidates and have them.
Can't we just keep it as a classroom format? There's hardly 40 of us.
No, we're going to keep it like this for now.
Can we keep a hand up and say, I have a question and do it? It's very onerous to make a big statement.
Well, I think for now we're going to go with this. We'll see how it goes. This is our first time, so let's just see how it goes. But thank you.
So then I have no questions.
Well, hopefully they'll answer all of our questions, right? Okay, so opening remarks from the candidates will last for 3 minutes. Our lovely timekeeper, Deb Bonacore, will hold up the 30-second mark when they're winding down, and then you'll know you have 30 seconds left. And then when responses to the questions will last for two minutes, and at the end we'll have closing remarks that last for 2 to 3 minutes from each candidate. As you know, this is a candidates' night, it's not a debate. We've had enough of that, right? Okay, so here we go. Here's my list of questions. But first off, Azra, would you like to start with an introduction for yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you. So, hi, my name is Azra Beg, and I'd like to start by thanking everyone for being here today and for the Education Association and for everyone that helped organize this, and my fellow candidates for the school board. So, again, my name is Azra Beg. I was born and raised outside of Cleveland, Ohio. I went to public school, and I was involved in student council, National Honor Society. Went to college in Cleveland, Case Western Reserve University. Got my BSN, Bachelor's of Science in Nursing degree. Was involved in student representation there also. And I worked at the Cleveland Clinic in the cardiac department and also the emergency department. Moved out here to New Jersey in 2000. Have been in South Brunswick since 2001 in the Kendall Park and Kingston area. And I have 2 daughters. One is a South Brunswick High School alumni. She's a student at Rutgers Newark University. She's studying business. One is, and my younger daughter is a senior at the high school. What else? So currently I work as a nurse in the Princeton and North Brunswick School District. I'm a substitute school nurse. I worked in the emergency department at the Princeton Hospital, the Old and New. I'm also a freelance journalist for a local news media. And is that 3 minutes? So previous board experience, are you just asking about the board experience as a school board member or other boards?
Whatever you want to do to introduce.
Okay, so I also serve as vice president of the Viking Athletic Club, which is part of the South Brunswick High School parent-teacher club. And I serve on other boards, such as the Islamic Society of Central Jersey. I'm a former board member there also. I think that's good for now.
Good evening, my name is Harry Delgado. Someone asked me just to really share, someone came and said they didn't know what a Board of Education does and what have you. I'll just share with you a very basic definition that I have here, and I could paraphrase, but I want to make sure that I do it justice. So the school board consists of lay representatives. It has 2 main purposes: to represent the concerns of citizens, taxpayers, and parents of the school administrators, and to represent the needs of the students in the school district to citizens, taxpayers, and parents of the community. So we don't run the schools, we create policy and hire administrators to in fact run the schools. So I hope that helps. Certainly there'll be a chance for you to ask questions, so if you wish, by all means, ask. Again, I say I'm Harry Delgado, and I reside at 36 Weatherhill Way in the village of Dayton. My wife Nancy and I, together with our two daughters, Ashley and Bella, have lived in South Brunswick for over 30 years. Both of our daughters went through the South Brunswick School District. They were inspired by the wonderful teachers and school staff that worked with them during their schooling, and after both graduating from Rutgers University, they pursued vocations in community service. Ashley became an elementary school teacher in High Needs Urban School District, where she still teaches. And Bella obtained a master's in social work and worked as a school social worker before pursuing a career as a licensed clinical social worker. Very proud of my daughters, as you can tell. For most of my adult life, I've been involved in community service. The commitment to make a difference led me to serve the South Brunswick community for 30 years as a career police officer, achieving the rank of captain. After Nancy and I became parents, my interest in our public schools grew. Naturally, given my predisposition to service, I thought the outlet of becoming a member of the South Brunswick Board of Education. And yes, I'm proud to say that after 22 years, the commitment remains. I served the South Brunswick Board of Education as Vice President for 3 years, President for 3 years, and also served as New Jersey School Boards Association Vice President for County Activities for 3 years, President for 2 years, and their immediate past President for 2 years. I served at the national level as the National School Boards Association's Regional Director for the National Hispanic Caucus, and served twice as the President's Interview Committee. I understand the importance of education, not only from seeing incredible things achieved in our own district over the past decade, but also because I, too, am a product of a rigorous education and a fellow educator. I have a Master's of Arts degree in Human Resource Management and a postgraduate education specialist degree in Education Leadership Management, Policy, Administration, and Supervision. I graduated with honors, and I'm a member of Kappa Delta Pi. I have taught undergraduate courses at various community colleges, and both undergraduate and graduate courses in leadership and management at the university level. I'm a member of the New Jersey Association of Criminal Justice Educators. In addition, I am the Accreditation Program Manager for the New Jersey State Association of Chiefs of Police Law Enforcement Accreditation Program, and I oversee over 170 law enforcement agencies in the program. I'm also a certified administrator of public parking. There is such a thing. By the International Parking Institute, and a member of their education committee and their safety and security committee. I am seeking a new term, most specifically because our school system has never needed strong oversight and guidance more so than now. We have endured a difficult stretch that has been painful for all of us. Governing in the best of times is easy, compared to times such as these. I am a trained problem solver, New Jersey Certified Master Board member, and I pledge to utilize these unique skills to restore our school district to a level commensurate with community expectations. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Laszlo Naitri Jr., and I just wanted to say thank you to SB Cares for putting this together tonight and for all of you that are attending. I'll start with the present. I'm 43 years old. I'm married and have 2 small children in 1st and 5th grade at Brooks Crossing School, and we live at 227 Davidson's Mill Road. And as I was thinking about how I'm going to describe it, what is that? Because we have a Monroe Township or Jamesburg mailing address, and it wouldn't really sound right to call that section of South Brunswick Township. But if you dug into our history hard enough, it's actually called Cottageville. I'll back up a little bit to how I got to being here tonight. I grew up in Hillsborough and graduated from the high school there in 1991. But I have been around this town as far back as I can remember. My father, some of you may know, was a phys ed teacher and coach here for 30 years, from 1962 to 1992. And so as a little kid, I was around this area. The soccer fields at Crossroads South, you'll recall, was the high school back in that era. And so I was running around, little kid, pain in the neck back then, but have always enjoyed being around this town. So both my parents were teachers, and probably I was not, as I was going to tell you next, I'm a police officer for South Brunswick Township. I have been since 1996 and currently hold the rank of lieutenant. When I was a little kid, 5 years old, I decided I wanted to be a police officer, and that's the track that I followed. Probably if I hadn't done that, I would be in education myself. But graduated from Rutgers in 1995, and as I said, became a police officer in 1996 here. And while during my career, I pursued my master's degree between 1998 and 2002 at New Jersey City University. I completed that and have had that in criminal justice for 14 years. What else can I tell you about myself? kids, as I said, are in the 1st and 5th grade at Brooks Crossing School. Gave you my background in education, and I think that kind of covers the overview. I've been in volunteer service for 11 years in Montgomery Township as a fireman and also first aid squad. So the spirit of public service has resided in me for quite some time. At this point, I'm seeking my first term on the Board of Education. Having 2 little kids in school here, I'm passionate about them succeeding and our school district succeeding, and it's pushed me internally to want to do this. I considered running a few years ago, and then being there's an open seat this year, I decided to seek it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to all my fellow candidates here. My name is Anil Patel. I came here from India in 1984. I'm from a small town. I came, married my wonderful wife Surya of 33 years. In America, we had 2 kids, Hetal Patel, 27, and Hina Patel, 23. They both are South Brunswick School District kids. They passed through and highly renowned schools, one in Rutgers become a purchasing manager, supply chain and marketing, and Hina is a fashion designer and marketing. I decided to move. I used to live in Union. 17 years ago, I moved into South Brunswick. I live at 43 Anderson Way, right opposite to South Brunswick High School. I decided to move into South Brunswick only one reason, because of school system. I looked around the towns that where can I move. I saw South Brunswick had a very good school system, and that tipped me my decision to move into South Brunswick. My profession, I'm a telecom solution architect at Ericsson. I started with Bell Labs, Telcordia, if people know about the whole AT&T divestiture. At that job, I've been there for 27 years. This is my first job in America, and I'm at that still there. I went through various positions in that job, from junior to senior, and now I'm a senior solution architect. Tremendous experience working with the team, leading the team, providing constructive feedbacks, taking the feedback, interviewing hundreds and hundreds of people to be on the project as an employee. It gave me a tremendous amount of experience and make me grow into a viable leader at the professional level. My lifelong contribution to the social service, community service. I have held various leadership positions at many social organizations as a president, chairman, executive board. Last May, I was honored by New Jersey State Legislature for my community service. One of the many areas which I would like to focus in this year's election, the lack of a communication and a trust between board and public at large. And that makes me going that I want to give something back to this community, and that's why I'm running. I want a balanced environment for a strong and balanced environment for safe, secure learning environment for kids, and a strong leadership for a fiscally prudent and balance of both children and taxpayers' need. Thank you very much.
Thank you again to South Brunswick Education Association and the district for hosting us here, as well as everybody taking their time to come out tonight. I know that I'm sure that we all appreciate that. My name is Lisa Rogers. I live at 8 Libby Drive, Monmouth Junction. I've been a resident in the town for 17 years. I was born and raised in North Brunswick, graduated of North Brunswick Township High School, and we won't talk about the year, but we can figure that out. My family lived in North Brunswick for over 100 years. We had relatives here as well, so when my husband and I first decided to move here, it was kind of a surprise because I was used to the farmlands. My family, I do have family here in town, and it was kind of an adjustment to see the farmlands develop so much when we got married about 17 years ago. We have two children, Jessica, who's a 10th grader, and John, who's an 8th grader at North. They are both in unit and honors classes, as well as sports, music, and art programs. I've been involved in the PTOs. I was an executive board member at the Monmouth Junction PTO for 5 years, as well as a Girl Scout mom. I was also coached girls basketball and boys basketball, as well as baseball. So my husband and I truly love working with the kids and helping them develop. I have no previous board experience, but since 2010, I've been an advocate on public education and public schools, which I'll explain more in my closing remarks. But just to give you a flavor, I have testified multiple times to the New Jersey State Board of Ed on multiple issues impacting our kids in schools, not only here in this district, but around the state, as well as I testified multiple times to the New Jersey Senate Education Committee, as well as the Assembly Education Committee about some of the issues. I've brought to light to our representatives in District 16 some of the issues impacting public education, and we've brought to light several issues to the public, which I hope has provided the public a little bit more insight into the issues that we face in not only in this town, the state, as well as at a federal level. I've worked for American Express Corporate Services for over 18 years, and then as a consultant for 7 years before turning my efforts towards owning a small business. I left American Express in 2003 as Vice President, Strategic Planning and Management for a division called Global Information Services. And one of my most proud moments was being the recipient of the American Express Chairman's Award for my managerial and fiscal responsibilities on a major project, My core responsibilities were in 5 major business support areas, including business development and project office management, where I was responsible for developing and leading a multi-year strategic business plan. Now, by no means should education be run like a business, but a school district could truly benefit from individuals with skills in project management, resource allocation, and client management. And I'll get more into my accomplishments around education in my closing remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We'll get right into asking the questions. If you want to pass the microphone back down. Sure. Okay, we'll just keep going, unless we want to just go back and forth, whatever you guys feel comfortable with. Our first question tonight comes for all of you. Remember, you get 2 minutes, and Ms. Bonacor will hold up her sign. The first question is, what motivates you to become a board member?
So, as I mentioned, I'm a registered nurse. So, as a nurse, I have a caring, a giving, a helpful heart. So, I like to help others, advocate for others. So, I've been a member, like I said, for about 3 years, part of the board, and it all started when 2 prominent leaders approached me in 2012 and suggested, why don't you run for the school board? And they saw that, I was a leader in the community. I was someone that was engaged. My daughters were part of various school activities, from the sports, soccer, basketball, track. They were in band, they were in theater, they were involved, and so I was involved in that way through the, being engaged with the parents. And then also working in the schools, I knew the faculty and staff, worked with the administrators, and then I had a good relationship with the township leaders, the mayor, the town council members, So they saw that I, worked with, the different boards, like with the township, the municipal alliance board, the human relations, and the women's commission. So they saw that the leadership skills that are needed. So, they saw that I could interact and work with others and collaborate with others, and I want to continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. What motivates you to become a board member? I guess in my case it would be what still motivates you to be a board member. But a little bit of history here. My mother was a teacher by training, so this is not foreign to me. And back when my daughters, as I said before, began school, I became really interested. And it was difficult for me because I was assigned as an undercover narcotics officer, so I didn't look anything like this. In fact, I looked like the person you wouldn't want to near you, based on my assignment as an undercover officer. But as I got involved in schools, I became involved with the PTO, and I saw the office, and I was elected vice president of the PTO in Infields. And I became involved in referendum. At that point, if you remember, our school was relatively small. We had about 3,700 students, but we were really exploding. And in fact, the following 2 decades and the following 2 census showed that we were the fastest growing community within Middlesex County, and the fastest growing population within that demographic was the under 18. So we had children moving into this town at a significant rate. I know some of you were here back then and you remember. And so we exploded, and I got involved in some referenda. As a result, some people took an interest, so my interest, and they asked me if I were interested in applying for a vacancy from someone that had left the board at that time. Well, it is my luck, as it always is, 9 people applied for it. I was fortunate enough to receive the appointment, and I've been there ever since. Again, this is, for me, the value of it is all intrinsic, as you know. I think I do it basically because I like it, I've taken an interest, I'm appreciative of what the district did, the teacher did for my kids, and I certainly feel the obligation to do it for others.
Okay. My motivation for running for the Board of Education, as I said in my opening, I'm a police officer. If I wasn't, I would more than likely be a teacher. And I have taught at the college level, Middlesex County College, did it for 3 semesters, enjoyed it very much, but it started to encroach too much on everything else that I had going on at the time. On that note, my family, the Nitree family, has enjoyed about 60 years of public service to South Brunswick Township, both in education and law enforcement, and also local government. My wife Barbara's the township clerk. With those 60 years, we've all been compensated for those 60 years, and it's time that one of us give a little something back to the town, and I really want to do that. Now that both of my kids are in school and don't require 100% constant supervision, I can commit to that. Another reason that I would like to get involved, and the reason I decided this year to get involved, we all know what happened with the superintendent situation, and it's still going on, and we're going to select a new one shortly. I wanted to be involved in that. I want to see our reputation here restored to what it has been, and I think we can get that done. We've done a tremendous job with this district in terms of costs, but costs continue to go up every year. It's just the nature of the business everywhere. I want to be involved in controlling that. We have fine athletic and other activities programs. My son Thomas is a South Brunswick Viking Tiny Mite in the PAL. He wears his Vikings number 23 uniform, and it's the same uniform that the high school kids wear. So we have this nice track all the way up from, he's in 1st grade all the way up to senior in high school. They're all Vikings all the way up. I want to be involved in maintaining that situation. And then finally, another thing that I'm passionate about is school security. A lot of the other school districts that surround us have stronger security measures in place, even if it's simply a retired police officer in soft clothes hired back just to monitor what's going on in the schools, up to having a Class 3 police officer, which has just been approved by the state of New Jersey, having police officers back in our schools for security's sake. We live in unstable times. We've got to do something more than we're doing right now to address that. Thank you.
So what motivates me? There's a couple of items that I could talk about. So first and foremost, why I moved into South Brunswick, because of school system. And I want to continue that school system thrives and has a reputation so other people can take a look at it and move into South Brunswick. This is a wonderful community. That community has given us a tremendous that I want to give back. The second reason, giving back to the community. That gave me my 2 beautiful children excellent education. They've been doing good in their careers. That what they learn in South Brunswick school system. So I want to give back. Take school system to the next level. I've been in telecom business. I've been IT. technologically we are moving so fast. And I want to give back using my experience, provide as much as I can so we can take our school system to the next level. It is very imperative the school system reputation is top notch. And the last but not least, stand up and voice concerns. When you see something doing wrong, you stand up. This is your civic duty to stand up and say something about when you see the things are not going well. As Lazio pointed out, last 2 years we have seen tremendous strained relationship between the people and the board. Have you ever seen a protest on South Brunswick Street for school superintendent ever? That's why I'm standing. Thank you very much.
What motivates me to become a board member? My husband keeps asking me that same question. So, quite frankly, I mean, I've been involved in advocacy for the public schools, as I had mentioned, since 2010. We faced some significant funding issues here in this district, as with all other districts around the state, when the School Funding Reform Act, or what they call SFRA, was impacted. When Governor Christie chose not to fund SFRA the way the law is written. At that time, it was $13 million that South Brunswick was going to be missing. Since that time, we've already lost $30 million, over $30 million, because of underfunding or not proper funding. When I first learned about that, I also learned about the PX school, which many of you may or may not know is the Princeton International Academy Charter School that was knocking on the door of South Brunswick. They wanted to come in and initiate and build a charter school that was going to focus on a specific group of children, which in effect would take resources, money, people, and time away from our 9 schools. So our tax dollars would be, in essence, going into South Brunswick School District schools and then right back out to the charter school. And I felt that that was a major issue. I also felt at that time that there was some transparency issues that we were facing on the Board of Ed, focusing specifically on the consent agenda, which may not be aware of it. Myself, as well as another individual, spoke out several times that we wanted the consent agenda to be much more publicized than it was, and we were able to achieve that. So all in all, I felt that with all the issues that we're facing at the state level, we've got curriculum issues coming down from the state, we've got growth in this district that's approaching. We're going to have about 1,500 new units probably coming in because the state is pushing us for low income. So there are many, many issues that we're going to be facing in the future. And as a parent and involved community member, my motivation, quite frankly, I feel is very clear. I want to make sure there's transparency, there's proper advocacy for all the children, and that there's proper actions that's being taken place for all children, not just specific groups of children. So I believe that we also have to support not only our students and parents, but we have an obligation to support our staff and teachers. And I want to make sure that that takes place as well.
Thank you. Do you want to keep the microphone down there? Then Azra's not always the first one.
Sure,
Keep you on the
absolutely.
spot.
Yep.
I know if that was me, I would be on the floor. So, the second question is, how would you improve relations and communications between the board and the parent and professional communities?
Okay. One area, again, that I think that we need to investigate is more communication, more consistent communication coming out from the district. I think that we need, for example, a general voicemail system for individuals that cannot come to the board meetings. There are those individuals, our senior citizens, that may not be able to come out to board meetings. They watch the replay, which I don't think it should be a replay. I think it should be live on video on our Viking network. So I think that there needs to be some changes around the presentation of the board meetings, as well as the ability for individuals that can't come to the meetings to question or provide questions to our board members. Our board members, or the board members I should say, are bound by law to not respond on a problem on behalf of the board. It needs to be taken to the board, but it's important that the entire 9-member board and the superintendent are immediately notified and a proper response is provided. I think there's been some delays in some responses, and I think that needs to change. We have an obligation to understand the roles and responsibilities of the Board of Ed, but I believe that the Board of Ed also has a responsibility to ensure documents and policies, et cetera, are much more accessible to the public. It took 2 years for the board to agree to place the consent agenda online prior to the board bi-monthly meetings, and we're still waiting for the bylaws to be placed up. So I think there needs to be a greater amount of emphasis placed on accessibility of information to the public. Also, I think there needs to be more cohesive approach to communication. I would like to see a very strong communication plan by the superintendent developed, and that the board oversee the implementation of that plan, and it's assigned to a board committee. I think stakeholders need to be involved in this type of community relations committee, and that would involve administrators, teachers, Board of Ed, PTO, community, where ideas are discussed as a community, and we bring that to the Board of Ed, and we see how this can be, how we can improve some of the issues that we are facing as a community.
Thank you, Lisa. So, how do we communicate between board and professionals and the public at large? Again, what Lisa said, involve. Involve PTO, involve parents, involve teacher, involve public at large, by all means. When I say all means, technology is going so fast. Today we're doing live on Facebook. They can do meeting on Facebook live. People can watch from home. A comprehensive communication plan. Perception is a big thing. Public has to know each and everything. We represent public there. And as Lisa pointed out, last 2 years, it just takes so long to even get some answers back. It's not acceptable. Survey, we just saw what you want in superintendent survey. More than 1,200 people participated. We can do survey, that's very cheap. We can do survey and get the people's opinion. That way, people get to know that they get involved in the school system. More than 75% of your tax dollar goes into school system. You have to say something. You have to have your say on the school board. Communication. Internet, email, public meetings, a large part of it. Work with everybody. It takes whole community to run it better. Thank you.
Thank you. On this question of how to improve relations and communication between the board, the parents, and professional communities. One thing is this forum right here is an excellent way to have communication open. I realize that two of the 5 of us currently sit on the board, and the other 3 of us would like to get on the board. But having these kinds of forums where we take these questions, answer them, and then take the questions that come off the cuff in a little while is an excellent way to do that. It's a word that's a little bit overused at the national level, but transparency. I almost didn't want to use that. I'm sitting here thinking another synonym for that because I'm not sure that it's met the way it should be at higher levels. There has to be clarity, there has to be openness in what the Board of Education does, so there's no question. Being sure to follow up on decisions made by the Board of Education. If the board members make a policy decision, there's got to be follow through, and there's got to be follow to make sure that it's happening. Any good business runs that way. Hand in hand with that is improving accountability levels. We say we're going to do something, that's part of the follow, and we follow through on it. Branching out more into the community, some of my colleagues here have said that already, but making ourselves accessible to the community. Other events talked about PTO meetings and things like that, getting involved in sports and activities in the town. I personally plan to coach SBAA baseball this spring, and if I'm elected to the board and I'm sitting there as a first base coach or manager in the dugout, and somebody wants to come up and ask me about something going on in the schools, be glad to do that, but that's another way to get out there. And then finally, bottom line, and I think it's in all our hearts, definitely mine, this is all about our kids and the parents. Thank you.
Just want to make a couple clarifications here. We are indeed a policy-making body, so some of the suggestions need to be vetted through the regulations that we have to adhere to. And I certainly understand how new board members sometimes do not understand the restraints that they will place themselves under once they become board members. It's not the same thing to be able to speak from that side of the dais as well as from this side of the dais. But I say that because, particularly in the reference to emails, I certainly understand technology. Someone called me a power user. So I know how it is that we can use it as a good vehicle to communicate with our community. But there's some very strict rules that govern communications between board members and the public specific to email. So those things, I just simply want you to understand, so they don't simply sound like great ideas that we haven't thought about and we haven't done them. And I say that as a sitting board member. And the other thing I want to clarify is, I mean, we talk a lot about the need for transparency and some of the other issues that were raised as concerns. Now, I want to add context to this. We had a rough spot there, but we were a well-functioning board for the previous 10 years and one of the highest achieving districts in the state of New Jersey. Is that simple? So we are a good district. You know, this is not like trying to make a district great again. Our district is great already. So I just want to make that clear. Now, when it comes to communications, I know that communications is foundation for trust. I certainly understand that. Now, most districts have good systems for getting the message out, but they struggle listening to the public. I understand that. And responding to what a community has to say. So we're trying to propose new ways to do that. Now, communication with parents and other concerned education advocates is not a new undertaking for me. I certainly have done it for the better part of my adult life. I've always listened to parents and others concerned with education issues in our district. And I think most of you know, because some of you are very in tune with what our district does, that I responded to parents and faculty concerns over issues relating to a former superintendent, and I took the lead in making sure that we resolve that issue. So I just think that that is worth saying. Also, I won't have time now to explain, but I understand about informal ways of communications, talking to parents, the media, and local organizations, etc. And I know about formal ways of communicating with the public, such as study circles, focus groups, town meetings, polling, surveys, etc. One of the best vehicles that we've used recently is a survey that was actually responded to by 1,700 people, in which we gather information about who they would like to see as a superintendent. But I'll talk about that later.
Thank you, Mary. So, in any relationship, communication is key, and our school district relays information through various mediums such as emails, social media, Facebook. I know like Mary Ann Murphy sends out the emails for the high school, and there's a Friday folder for all the schools. So we try to inform the public with the information that's necessary in various ways. There is a lot of information, but we do provide in different fashions. So there's public meetings, board meetings every other week, and I'm not sure if actually our community knows about it. They're held the Mondays at Crossroads North at 7 p.m. And then they can be viewed on the VTN and also on TV. So it's a good way to be informed about what is going on, just being aware of the different issues. And all the board members are accessible through email, and people from the public have emailed me, and I forwarded on to the superintendent, to the president of the board or other board members in wherever they need to be directed. So we have that responsibility to respond to the community, and we have done that, and we'll continue to do that. And myself, I'm very accessible to the community in the schools and in the township. People approach me for various issues, and I address their concerns and bring it back to the board, to the superintendent. So, thank you.
Now, fair. Okay, the third question is, how can the Board of Education's effectiveness be measured?
Okay, so I think the best way to measure is the achievement of our schools. Our students, they can be measured by their results with the SATs, the National Merit Scholars. This year we had around 69 National Merit Scholars. Also achieving not only academically, but also like in the band, or the marching band is excellent. The athletics, so many championships that the teams have won in various sports. And so besides achievements, also the responsiveness of the response from the community, the parents, the feedback that we get. And just building the relationship with the community and seeing what feedback that we get. So, thank you.
This is a very important subject to me because early on I would train new board members, and we would always try to impress upon them that boardmanship matters. Says there's plenty of research out there by the Center for Public Education, the Lighthouse Project, number 2 that I can mention, that clearly say that involving that what makes an effective school, that school boards have a significant impact on student achievement in their district. It certainly involves evaluating virtually all the functions of a board in what they do, from internal to governance to policy, all the things that we do as board members. And it also involves communications and with teachers, building administrators, and the public. And some of that research gives you between 7 and 8 specific best practices to follow. And I'll just mention a couple of them because I think they're important. But it says that effective school boards commit to a vision of high expectations for student achievement, which is what we do. And he says that effective boards make sure that these goals remain the district's top priorities and that nothing else detracts from them. And there was an issue that we had last year that certainly detracted from our mission and our goals. Now, it also says that research shows that effective board members, boards, have a strong shared beliefs and values about students' ability to learn and of the system and its ability to teach or achieving at high levels. They don't use the excuse of poverty or other issues such as excuses, but they rather use it as challenges. So in district like ours, poverty, lack of parental involvement, and other factors are described as challenges to overcome and not as excuses. The research also says the collaborative relationship with staff and the community is another indicator of board effectiveness. Our data savvy board members. The Lighthouse study also showed that board members in high achieving districts identify specific student needs through data and justify decision based on that data. If you watch some of our meetings, you'll see how diligent we are now in analyzing that data. In fact, we just went through data, the first 2 years of data specific to PART. We align and sustain resources to meet district goals. We lead as a united team with a superintendent, and that's very important. You know, a lot of people say, we don't want the superintendent to tell you what to do. Well, that's not the nature of that relationship. The nature of the relationship is reversed. I mean, we hire the superintendent to work for us, but we want that relationship to work. It has to be collaborative. It can be adversarial. And certainly that is an important factor and something that I will bring with me as we select the next superintendent in the next months in the next months to come.
All right, it's time to get this one out of the way. I became a police officer in 1996. Who hired me? Because in my notes, I also had the 8 effective characteristics of the school board, so I kind of stole a little bit of thunder there. You see, police minds do think alike. Anyway, but really, that's okay, because I can take this in a little bit of a different direction. So I would have touched on those things too, but that's really okay. But just had to throw that one in there. I knew it'd come up sooner or later.
I hired him.
Anyway, so give me credit on those 8 points too, and then we'll move forward from there. One of the things we look at for the effectiveness of the school board is an outsider's view of what goes on here in our district in South Brunswick. Is South Brunswick a desirable place to live and also raise your children and get a quality education? And I can say yes, it is. And it's been that way for a long time. The district achieved blue ribbon status when my father was still teaching, and that was prior to 1992. So that's one thing that we can look at. Another thing we can look at is teacher retention rates. Not only do we get teachers who want to come in and teach, we do not have a high turnover where they're seeking to get out of here and go somewhere else, because this is a quality district to be in. We can look at the successes of our students on general aptitude tests. We can look at what they're doing with their lives after they've graduated from the South Brunswick School District, whether they are intellectually brilliant or they're playing wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, like Mohamed Sanu. What else do I want to cover on that?
Do you like my notes?
That pretty much covers it. I'm gonna pass along this.
Your turn. Do you have the 8 points too?
It is universal out there at 8 points. But what I want to talk about is any job you do while you're working for somebody or you're working for yourself, you set up a performance goal for yourself or your employee. We want to set that performance measurement for the board. Did we achieve the high student ratios, the park testing scores, not necessarily only park, across the board testing scores? Does teacher retention, do we have high turnover or not? What kind of relation we have with teachers and parents and public? These kind of measurement we need to look back at and set up and ask public periodically, maybe every 6 months, every year, how are we doing? We do that, everybody who's working here, we do every 6 months. How are you doing? If we're not doing okay, we have a performance improvement plan. Where are we lacking? We need to set up some kind of, district has goal to achieve, and why not board? Board has to have that goals tied to them and to perform to that goal. If we saw that the perception out there last 2 years, we need to look back and say, okay, what did we do wrong? Where did we go wrong? We have to have those kind of performance measurement set up for the board and abide by it and get public's opinion. How are we doing? And that way we will keep ourselves honest. And the ultimate is the election. Every 3 years, you have to go back to the people and ask them, how did I do? That is the biggest measurement you can ever have. Thank you.
I only have 4. I think, when I think about this question, we have to keep in mind that the superintendent works for the Board of Ed. And I think we need to make sure that we hire the best superintendent, because as we saw, there's a direct impact of the superintendent on satisfaction within the townspeople. I think that we also have to ensure that we implement SMART goals, SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. I think that when the previous superintendent was here, the goals that he placed for this district were unachievable, and it was presented that way upon the return of our interim superintendent, that they had to adjust the goals. So I think that we need to make sure the board members are part of the development of those goals, but we need to make sure that they're achievable goals. I think also that we need to issue the surveys. I 100% agree. We need to measure satisfaction among all stakeholders, the township, the administrators, students, and teachers. While we might have a high % satisfaction amongst one constituent group or a group, the music, the art, the high performers, I think that we are lacking in addressing our free and reduced lunch individuals, as well as our special education students. One thing that we have not done in this town, and we need to do it, is to create what we call a CPAC committee, Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. That is required of every district by the state of New Jersey. And I've spoken to several parents of special education parents that feel that they're not, their needs are not being addressed, not individually, but as a whole group. There needs to be a survey taken amongst all CPAC, special education. So I think that we have a lot that we can offer in terms of how to measure effectiveness of the board, but I think we need to make sure that whoever we hire as superintendent, we have a commitment, which I know we would, but we would have a commitment by the board to ensure that we have SMART goals implemented.
Thank you. Do you want to pass it into the middle? Someone else to go first this time? Okay, the next question. If the majority of the board is in agreement on an issue but you disagree, how would you communicate your opinion?
So we will have differences. Any given place, you will have difference. We have to honor that. There are two types of issues that comes up. Some on the board we have seen there's the confidential, the personal issues that internally we discuss and we leave it there and we cannot comment publicly. But public issues that we can discuss with public at large, I will voice my opinion, and where I explain why I am of that opinion. And try to understand the other people's opinion. And try to educate myself that why they believe differently than I believe. Ultimate goal is to the greater goods for the township and the community. But definitely raise my opinion. Even if I'm alone, I will definitely raise my opinion because that's what I believe in. And my interest is at the children and taxpayers of this community. It will be paramount to all other interests. So we'll definitely voice my opinion and let appropriate way to address in either board meeting or any other means that I could do legally. Thank you.
Thank you. On this topic of being in the minority, and if I disagree, how would I communicate my opinion? As Mr. Patel said, there is a difference between private session and public session with the Board of Education. But for me personally, how I react and how I voice is, it's going to depend upon the severity of the issue and how passionate I am about it. And is it really that important? If it's important, believe me, I'm going to dig in. I've been a police supervisor for over 5 years. My job was to make decisions every day, and they get made in this priority. What's the best for the town? What's the best for the department? And then what's in the best interest of the officer involved? Those are the priority of how things go. I will apply that decision-making philosophy to the Board of Ed as best as I can. Yes, it can be apples and oranges, but just be able to prioritize what's important and what's not. Again, if it's something serious enough, I will dig in. Do that. Thank you.
Well, I can stand here and say to you that I've done it. You've seen it. There's certainly a working relationship that shall exist amongst board members, and there's a certain protocol that is followed. The Open Public Records Act indicates that there's 9 things that we can't discuss in public, but everything else should be discussed in public and only in public. So, I agree with that. Now, I think the confusion sometimes comes from the expectations of you, our friends, towards us. Says you elect us as board members and you think that we individually have the power to change and fix things. And that doesn't happen that way. So where do I become an asset to you? Is to advocate for your cause by influencing others and hoping to change their opinion so that they can in turn understand our points of view and support it. That's how you do it. Now, if things erode to the extent that you must do the right thing, I think all of you know that I can do that. And I think that sets me apart from others that have been tested before. I have been tested, and I think I've passed that test. The collaboration and respect among board members is paramount. I have worked during my time as a board member with highly dysfunctional boards, okay, that don't trust each other, and they end up adversely affecting the children. That is who we're here for, primarily advocating for the children. And so I've also been part of very highly functional board where the level of communication is very high, and so is the level of trust. So as such, that's what we need to look for. I mean, when it comes to dissent, certainly in the proper form and with the proper and under the proper conditions, a board member should say so. But the way to do it is by influencing others to try to change it. Remember, today's minority might be tomorrow's majority. And so this is a cycle that progresses. So you'll get your chance.
So it's important that you speak your opinion and you represent the community that you're serving. And just because your opinion isn't in the majority doesn't mean that you can't voice it. And working with this board, we've been a very cohesive board mainly. We are able to speak our mind on any issue within the executive sessions, and no one has a problem of expressing how they feel or where they are on an issue, and it's important to not be shy from expressing that you feel a certain way. And like Harry said, it was expressed this year, and if there's issues that are bothering you, you can reach out to the superintendent as a board member, and reach out to the president and discuss also what's on your mind and how they can guide you or to work things out. So, thank you.
I have an answer.
Oh, sorry.
Lisa.
Okay, so I've attended about 90% of the board meetings for the past 3 or 4 years. And within that 90% of the board meetings, I think I've provided my opinion on several issues. I've gone up, spoke at the podium. And one of the things that I think, and to Harry's point, which I 100% agree with, as well as Azra, I think that getting the individuals to change their opinion is of utmost priority. And I think when the park came out, and I voiced my opinion over and over again, I think that we were able to provide the board with information, enough information for them to see the different side. And I believe that in providing that information, we were able, several of us were able to change the opinion on the BARC test. And we were able to, prior to Dr. McCartney's departure the first time, he actually allowed what we call a sit and read policy. And then when the new superintendent came in place, he changed it to a sit and stare policy, which meant that the children not taking the test would actually have to sit in their chairs and basically stare at their hands. We were able to then convince he, as well as the board members, that this is an inappropriate process, and to retain the initial policy, which was sit and read, which he ended up doing. So I think by me standing up at several of the board meetings, you can see that I've several times provided either an approval or disapproval of policy that was being issued. So I have no problem during the executive session to share my approval or disapproval, and then to vote yea or nay or abstain during an actual public vote.
Thank you. Can I pass it to you first? During the process of the superintendent's search, what specific steps will you take to properly vet prospective candidates?
All right, I'm glad I get to go first on this particular question. First and foremost, our next superintendent needs to be subjected to an exhaustive background check, similar to what I've gone through as a police officer. We need to know every corner of that person's life, everything they've ever done, because in the end, we are entrusting that person with the health and well-being of our children, our teachers, and our support staff. It has to be that way. There's just no two ways about it. Any negative issues that come up, they have to be addressed. They have to be thoroughly dug through. They cannot be glossed over. If there's something in that background that shows that it might come up again while working for us, maybe we need to move on to somebody else. I would also take public input on this. If we can get this down to 3 finalists, a question and answer session at either a board meeting or a special secondary meeting just for that purpose should be established in one of the schools, in the auditorium, like the board meetings are at Crossroads North, to give the public a chance to ask their own questions of that candidate or candidates, the finalists. And then finally, as far as vetting goes, and I kind of alluded to this already, the candidate, the finalists, would I actually trust that person with my own children unattended? Thank you.
Well, I've been through 3 superintendent searches, and let me tell you, but I facilitated one. That was Dr. Corey McCartney, so I'll take credit for that. One of the things that we need to understand, I mean, there's a process established, and this is going to be a completely different process. In the previous process, we had restraints And we were certainly given files of superintendents that were seeking to, under the restraints of this system, which means if you come from a smaller district and you want to make money, you have to go to a larger district, then the pool of applicants actually came from districts not nearly the size of ours. But certainly, we got a very charismatic person that showed themselves, as I learned, doing Disney training, at their best and seemed hireable. But the point is this: we have to be careful with the other pieces of this process, like the one suggested. You can't put candidates in front of the public when they haven't told their district that they are looking for another job, because they're all going to be fired. So we need to understand that. I mean, there's a sense of confidentiality here. So you're going to have to trust those that you vote in, as will happen, because you voted members of this standing panel right here to select your next superintendent. You have to trust them when you vote on November 8th, because that is going to be the most important decision that they're going to make. Now, another big difference in this time is we are actually going to solicit, we advertise, and we drew parameters that are going to be part of the questions during the interview based on the survey that you provided to us. I believe that 1,772 people answering that survey is incredible. It shows a lot of community engagement. And that is going to be a very positive and different tool that we did not have before that's going to be very helpful in hiring the next superintendent.
So we have to go through all those resumes and then narrow it down. And we, as we narrow it down to maybe 10 or so, definitely we have to do the background checks. And then as we narrow it down further to the last few or so, like Mr. Naitri had said, there's going to be no stone unturned. We will do our research and look at references that they give, but also look at people that know these certain individuals outside of the references that they have provided. And perhaps go to the public, that community, and see what input we can get from them. I know there's some restrictions. We'll see what happens with that forthcoming. But definitely we want to hire someone with the best leadership skills, the best moral character, and ethical values. Thank you.
So first and foremost, we need to find out why we are here, why we need to find a new superintendent. We really need to look at our process and do some root cause analysis. That what did we miss? So we have to improve that process and find out that where did we go wrong. Let's just say we have to check, background check. It just, there's no tomorrow, because our children's future in this person's hand. It is the biggest responsibility that that person has to drive the policies, to drive daily operations. As Harry said, we are like liaison, but it's the superintendent that really is the most important person in the school system. So we really have to make sure that we hire the best out there. Again, some of the information, as we cannot, while they are looking for a job, we cannot go to the public, but we already have done survey. We know what public wants in the new superintendent. Take those measures. Reach out to the other boards. Reach out to that community where the candidate's coming out from, and get everything we could and vet it correctly. So we get the best and brightest in this community to make sure that our children's future is secure. Thank you.
Okay, so what specific steps do you take to properly vet a candidate? So those of us, and I'm sure there's many of you out there, have been involved in the hiring process of individuals. I think the single most important issue we faced and what we must ensure is that the professional search firm, that's been hired does a thorough job. Not only from a full background check, but to social media review and to character references from multiple people, not just their personal references. We must ensure that the company that's been hired is doing a complete and detailed review of all candidates first. And we need to ensure that a very basic, simple question is answered. And that is, would you rehire this person? Because when you answer that question, you get a sense immediately when that person answers if it's a yes or no or hesitation. And that should trigger a further review of that individual. It's a very simple question. It's vital that the new board include the community in the selection of the new superintendent all the time, not just this time. I was pleased that Dr. McCartney announced on the 12th, and September 12th, that the board, meaning that the advisor, the community would have the opportunity to do that. Back in 2013, I requested at the board meeting that the community participate by completing a survey and by having a confidential panel review the applicants' resumes, but unfortunately that request wasn't granted at the time, and they chose to utilize New Jersey School Boards Association. And they did issue a survey, but I believe now there's improved governance that's been in place, which includes a confidential committee. So my role is to support that process and to ensure that the individuals involved in the interview process, and I act as an advocate for those of you. And when the time comes to do a final interview with the candidate or candidates, I will ensure that the questions that you, the stakeholders, have are thoroughly answered within the boundaries of the law.
Thank you very much. So we went through the 5 questions that we had previously sent to the candidates prior to the meeting tonight, and we've accumulated a few questions from the audience that Mrs. Rimmer is going to ask. I've screened through them, and she's going to take the role of asking them. So I know it's on the spot, but it's like that trick Chris Wallace question at the end, right? So whoever wants to go first, who hasn't gone first yet, Harry, you've not gone first? Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Don't be afraid, just so you know.
None.
We appreciate everything that you do, and you do all of this for nothing. And it's for us, and as a teacher, it's for us, it's for our kids, it's for our town, and you couldn't be running for school board if you weren't committed to that. So know that we all know that up front. So these are not questions to be controversial. The question is just to get a little feedback. So. Okay, so one of them says, describe your view of the roles of the school board and the superintendent. What do you think is the ideal relationship between the 2 offices? I'm going to give another part of this. Please make sure the superintendent has experience at all levels, especially middle school and high school. And so what do you think about that? What do you think about the relationship between the school board and the superintendent? It's a tricky one. And Harry, you, I think, definitely described how tricky it can be because there's parameters for everybody. So what about it? What's the relationship between school board and superintendent? Well, you want to start?
There has to be commonality in goal setting, period. The goals need to be formulated between the superintendent and the board. That's a significant one because, again, I say that relationship needs to be one of collaboration. You can't hire a superintendent, pretend that they say his goals, and then the board is going to follow that. It works the other way around. Something that is done together. The second part of the question refers to?
In terms of the idea of superintendent having experience at all levels, that's all.
That is such a great point.
And definitely the higher levels, I think, is what, that came through 3 or 4 times.
Well, and I know why. I mean, we just had an experience like that. And I think that you don't get to see some of the issues that we have with children in the upper grades, period. You know, it's a whole different, not that they're less important, but they're different. And I think experience at the high school level give a broader perspective to a superintendent to deal with the district, overall. We just saw that. It didn't work out when someone was trying to learn, going through the learning curve with us, and we know what the outcome was. So certainly, I agree with you 100%, and it's something that I'm going to bring to the table as I represent all of you in the search of an next superintendent, and that is that experience is theirs. We need a solid background. Now, listen, there's a vetting process, and there was a vetting process for this other superintendent, in a thorough one for that. And some of the things that came out later certainly were not part of that process, not because it was flawed, but basically because, they were well hidden. There were things that did not come up until other people certainly got the courage to speak later on in the process. But I'll say, In order for a board to be a functional board, an effective board, one that represents the best interests of children, students, has got to be a strong relationship of trust and communication between the board and the superintendent.
You can pass it on. You want?
We're all answering the same question.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Because honestly, I really, I wouldn't say a whole lot different than what Mr. Delgado just said. That's why, why I say that, but it is a good answer. If you don't have a positive relationship between the school board and the superintendent, you're just not getting anything done. Everything is gonna grind, everything is gonna bog down to a halt, and nobody's gonna be happy. The board's not gonna be happy, the superintendent's not gonna be happy, the board of ed office is gonna be happy, all the way down to the teachers and to the students and ultimately to the parents who have the kids in the schools. So that is important, and that everybody be on the same page, similar goals, values, and objectives in place are critical. If you don't have that, you don't have anything. And then the second part of that was experience at different levels of teaching. I think that's incredibly important. And having taught for just 3 semesters at the college level, and it was Middlesex County College. I had classes of 20 to 25 18-year-olds in the fall where they were just in a high school setting that June, and so not much was different. If you haven't sat in that classroom and know what a teacher goes through, have to build a class from scratch, that's the best part, and I think the teachers are here can understand that. If you're assigned a new class to teach, they've given you the books, but you have to build it. You have to build the PowerPoints, you have to create your own tests, you eventually have to grade them. You're doing 4 times the prep work to actually teaching the material. And so for a superintendent to have that background and experience, especially in a district like this one, is critical. Thank you.
Just real quick, we have 5 great people in front of us that want to help and probably think the same way about almost everything. If you think you want to say something different, then grab the mic, but you don't have to answer if you don't want to, and we think nothing less, no, I'm not talking to you. If we think nothing less of you if you choose to not speak, just so you know. That was told to me.
Definitely. So
That was
I'll
told to
be-
me. I have no microphone. I feel like I did like a wire, like. But yeah, so you
So
can
let me
speak
be
if you
frank.
choose to.
I do agree with having less support. It has to be a collaborative relationship between superintendent and board. And ultimate goal is we are all here for greater good of the community that hire us and do the job. So definitely has to be that collaborative relationship. But superintendent should know that the board is the ultimate boss here. It cannot be the other way around. And it's definitely, both have to work together. As I said before, in relationship, it's both ways. We have to work together to make it a great relationship. But the eye on the pie has to be there. It just, you have to make sure that they superintendent understand that. And second part of that question, all level of experience. And absolutely, different age level have different problems, different difficulties. And superintendent should be aware of all those difficulties and how to deal with that and provided all the information he or she gets. So definitely experience level, it has to be well versatile and the collaborative relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you can pass it to Lisa right now because the question is, do you support park testing to be mandatory for students? That was not planned, it just happened. I'm just saying.
What was the second part? It was just that support park testing?
It was just, the applause was the second part. The first part was, do you support park testing to be mandatory for students? And I think everybody has to talk on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna address that in a second. I just wanna add one more thing. The superintendent that we hire needs to be a superintendent that is able to work with individuals that change. Because just because we hire the superintendent and new board members come on board, we have to make sure that that superintendent is able to adjust and work with new people and share their views. So I just wanted to get that one point across. Do I support the park test? So let me clarify. I do not support park. I feel that there will always be standardized testing. and that every public school will need to go through standardized testing because we have to be accountable to the taxpayers. We need to know that our schools are doing their job. However, I do not believe that a standardized test should have what we call high stakes applied to them. And that is a standardized test utilized to ensure that a child graduates from high school, or from school, K through 12. And I do not believe, I'm strongly against standardized testing to be used to determine the merit of a teacher. One test does not define a child, and one test does not define a teacher. So that being said, I'm against PARC, but I understand that standardized testing will always be a factor. Now, what can South Brunswick do about that PARC test? What we can do is provide options to parents, which they have done. It's driven down by the state and also the federal government, but in this case, PARC is more now a state level, to implement this test. I think that every district has a responsibility to ensure that all parents and all students are allowed to make a decision as to how they want to proceed. The PARC test is one of 4 or 5 requirements, or excuse me, options that classes through 2019 are able to utilize. So they don't have to use PARC for this year, next year, or up to 2019. Come 2020, that's when the story changes, and they are looking to have PARC utilized as the graduation requirement. However, they will still be able to implement a portfolio review, which I am all support of, because I think a portfolio review provides a more broad and consistent both breadth and depth of a student's education. One test does not define a child.
Going back to the previous questions, I didn't get a chance. Trust. We have to have a trust between the board member and the superintendent. Very vital. So PARC. Yes, this is a hot topic. Am I supportive of PARC? So we've seen how many states have opted out of not including PARC, and many townships in New Jersey are not using that. So I think it definitely needs improvement. I am a supporter of standardized testing. We need to be able to evaluate what the students are learning. But PARC needs to be improved, and I'm not in support of using the results of PARC as evaluating the teachers. I do think there might be changes to the PARC being mandated as the next election cycle for a governor. So we'll see what happens. Time will tell. Thank you.
Well, this is a time-sensitive issue. We know it's the law, and in 2021 it's going to be a required graduation requirement. Now, I certainly agree with a lot of what Mrs. Rogers said here, and I'm certainly more against the fact that it ties into teacher performance. I certainly don't think that that should be an indicator of teacher performance. I guess the challenge for us as a district is, so what do we do now? Because it is, the law of the land, if you will. So we just began, as for those of you that either saw the meeting or attended the meeting a few weeks ago, we just began to analyze the data that came from PARC, and we see how some of our groups are actually needing more resources than others. One clearly, certainly over others. That's always important to us. The problem that we have is we only have the data for 2 years, and admittedly the data is flawed, because there were a lot of, certainly a significant number of opt-outs during either one of those 2 years. But what we do see is that as we progress, and I guess we begin to realize that there's going to be a form of testing that has always been. I've certainly seen enough through my years of service on the board that now we need to prepare for this that will be our next step. So, analyzing the data so that we know which resources we need to allocate so that we can help our students perform better as it is reforming the graduation. Certainly, resources to train our teachers and provide them with the best tools possible so that they can in turn help our students perform better in this test. So My perspective is one of a realist, one have seen one form of testing or another throughout the years, and I believe that rather than wait for time or the expectation that this may change, I think we need to continue to prepare as we have and move forward as though it is the test that is going to be the one to use as assessment.
Thank you. On Park, my answer is a flat no, I don't support it as a high-stakes graduation requirement, as you put it, because it really is high stakes. Now I'm going to go to my own personal experience of that. As I told you before, I do have a master's degree in criminal justice, which I spent 4 years commuting up to Jersey City to accomplish while working full-time. But to back up and why that's significant is because when I graduated from Hillsborough in 1991, I took the SAT test, and anybody around my generation would know how the scoring in the SATs went back then. I got a 990 on that SAT score. 1,000 is a big deal. It's a big difference between 1,000 and 990, but as probably most people know, that's one question. You know how many top-tier colleges I got locked out over that? I had basically a 4.0 GPA. I was National Honor Society my junior and senior years in high school. But one question on a standardized test really threw a wrench into my plans. I think it's worked out, and I'm happy with where I'm at 43 years of age. So I do have a big problem with this. I'm hoping that somehow if a movement starts up to repeal this 2021 graduation requirement, that South Brunswick Township will sign on in support of that. But also, I'm not thrilled with the potential impact it's going to have in the classroom and how our teachers are going to have to tailor their teaching, and the curriculum's going to have to be altered and adjusted just to get kids to pass this. So I think that kind of sums it up. No, I do not support the mark.
So we need to know and we need to measure what children has learned, and we need to prepare them for the college. In a present form part, I don't think it's working. And I certainly don't support when it's used to evaluate our teachers. It's definitely not. We as Harry said, it's a law of the land. So we really need to work within the boundaries. How can we provide different options, as Lisa said before? If we have a recourse, many of the board in New Jersey has opted out. So let's look at it, what they have done, and provide. So school board, local school board are for a reason, for local control and local representation. So we have a tremendous responsibility to do finding out all this information and make an informed decision about the testing. One test is definitely, what Lazio said and Lisa said, it does not tell the whole story of what the student has learned. And definitely does not, I would not like to measure our teachers from that test, because it's counterproductive. Thank you.
I know we have some other questions here from the public, but I want to give the candidates time for their closing remarks. So if your question didn't get answered, then I invite you to come for refreshments and speak with the candidates afterwards and ask them your questions one-on-one. Does that work for everyone? Okay, so is there anyone who hasn't gone first yet? No? Lisa, you want to start with your closing remarks?
Sure.
Again, for closing remarks, we'll do 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to read. I want to make sure I get everything covered. So again, I've been an advocate for public schools since 2010 upon learning about the effect that charter schools were having on public education. I've mentioned already about the PAC school where they were trying to open, and that millions of our tax dollars would have been diverted and siphoned away from our own schools. So I was involved in bringing to light that issue. I also felt at that time that it was also going to affect not only our teaching staff, but our programs, and or also increase our property taxes. At that time, I then became involved with Save Our Schools New Jersey, which is a grassroots public forum where parents have come together, and it's now over 40,000 strong. And I became much more involved in our education issues that affect students, not just here in South Brunswick, but also statewide. As I mentioned, at state level, I've testified multiple times to the New Jersey Senate Education and the Assembly Education Committees, as well as the New Jersey State Board of Ed, and met with our local past and present legislative representatives for District 16 on issues impacting public ed. The South Brunswick Town Council also voted unanimously in support of a resolution that I presented requiring voter approval of charter school applications. Again, local control. We have a right to determine whether or not a charter should come into our district. In 2013, again, I brought to light South Brunswick's $13 million shortfall from School Funding Reform Act, which is now over $30 million. When the park exam came, I spoke to parents about its impact. I was asked to join education panels to speak from a parent's perspective and was asked to present my findings to members of our schools and PTOs. I provided multiple forums for parents to become educated by viewing documentaries such as Standardized, Lies, Money, and Civil Rights, How Testing is Ruining Public Education. I've hosted many forums in my own home to bring parents up to speed. After testifying at the Assembly Ed Committee meeting about the former South Brunswick Superintendent's decision enforcing that sit and stare policy, I then spoke at that meeting that night, and that's when it was adjusted to a sit and read policy. So by creating awareness and presenting information without bias, I believe it was a successful endeavor because it enabled individuals to make their own fact-based decisions and provided the platform for the Board of Ed to issue notification to the New Jersey Department of Ed that South Brunswick supported the resolution to stop park. Finally, I played a pivotal role with concerned parents, taxpayers, teachers, and district employees in bringing to light issues surrounding the previous superintendent and exposed atypical and questionable expenditures by that superintendent while advocating for greater transparency and communication from the district's leadership and Board of Education. Finally, having kids who are active in the schools, I have the opportunity to speak with parents and teachers on a regular basis about some of the issues and concerns they and students are experiencing. I believe my background has prepared me to take on the role of member of South Brunswick Board of Ed, and I assure all South Brunswick citizens that I will work hard and truly be an advocate for teachers, administrators, students, parents, and taxpayers. So I hope that you consider me and vote for me on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you once again to organizers providing this opportunity to share my vision for South Brunswick School Board. I will bring to the table more than 25 years of my community leadership experience, role as a social servant, my organizing skill, and common sense approach and out-of-box thinking. I'm running in this election to represent our children's academic excellence and the hardworking taxpayer citizen. We need to balance quality education for our children and keep tight watch on school tax. We need to hold board accountable to people who they represent. We need more transparency and above all, more communication with community, parent, teacher, and district employee. Quality education, safe and secure learning environment, and the opportunity for the children is paramount. It is very imperative that we have your voice on the school board. Your support in this election is very important. I am the choice for the change. I'm asking for your vote. Please go out and vote for me on November 8th. Thank you. God bless America, and God bless this beautiful community. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank all of you for attending tonight. This has gone on for quite some time, and I appreciate your attentiveness, and thank you to SB Cares for doing this tonight. Again, I'm Laszlo Naitri Jr., and I've been a police officer for 20 years. I know how local government works because I'm in it every day. I have two parents that were teachers, one for 33 years and one for 30 years. And most importantly, I have two small children in the school district who are in 1st and 5th grade, are going to be here for a long time. And how they turn out is very important to me. It's my, if nothing else works out in my life, that I have two successful kids one day in this school district, along with your children too, is paramount to me. I sat here tonight and listened to my colleagues and or opponents on this panel, and I'm comfortable in my own shoes. I'm not too proud to say I have some things to learn, no two ways about it. When you start something new, you're a rookie, but I can promise you the technical rules and things that go with being a board member, I'll pick it up quickly. I'm doing this for the right reasons. It's in my heart to want to do this. Education has gotten me to where I am today, and I want to continue that drive for the rest of us. I ask you for your vote on November 8th, and I thank you for your time.
I think I mentioned before some of the qualifications specific to my academic background and the fact that I'm currently teaching at Mercer County Community College. It's one of the reasons why I think I understand education from a different perspective, not just as I have accumulated from my experience as a board member. And also the fact that I've lived in this community longer than I lived anywhere else. Simply, I'm a member of this community. In fact, I married someone who was born and raised here, and the first chance she had to get out of here was when I took her out to Miami. So in any case, I raised two children here, and I'm very, very, very appreciative of what the district and the teachers in the district did for me. So I think it's important that you understand what has transpired, and I believe that I humbly can say that I participated and made, at least was a conduit for some of that change. During over 20 years of service on the board, I've had the honor of serving in every board leadership position, not only statewide, not only local, state, county, and national, including that of a board president here of this very board for 3 years. Through my years of service, the district has hired outstanding staff that has led to student achievement levels to historic highs. Regardless of the metric used for measurement, SAT, National Merit Recognition, Advanced Placement Test, Performance, ACT, etc., Southwest institutions have continued to demonstrate tremendous academic results, and that continues today. Similarly, the district has countless indicators of excellence in music, arts, athletics. Leadership, in the words of JFK, things just don't happen. Things are made to happen. I had oversight of an unprecedented student population in this district. When I first was elected to this board, there were approximately 3,700 to 3,900 students. That was in the mid-90s. We have nearly 9,000 today. As a result of the years, we have built and added existing facilities to accommodate this growth. Indian Fields was built, Bruce Crossing was built a high school, 2 referendums across the street, build a high school in addition to the high school. Some board members have never seen one facility implemented during their lifetime. I certainly have the opportunity to have all those experiences. My greatest sense of accomplishment is consistent with our stated mission and reason for existence. And by the way, our achievements have been accomplished with the second lowest tax rate county equalized formula in Middlesex County. I must say again, our school system has never needed strong oversight and guidance more than now. We have endured a difficult stretch that has been painful for all of us. Governing in the best of times is easy, I assure you that. As compared to times such as these, I am a trained problem solver and a New Jersey certified master board member. I pledge to utilize these unique skills to restore our school district to a level commensurate with community expectations. Now, if you allow me to indulge for 30 more seconds, I quote from the Center for Public Education because we've had discussion as to whether or not you should pick who you like. I think you should pick who's both qualified. Your school board makes the decisions of determining how your community's children are educated and how your tax dollars are spent. Voting for school board members is a simple but powerful way to support student success and strengthen your community. Every child enrolled in your school district is a reason for you to vote in the school board election. The overall quality of your schools, both now and in the future, rests with the decisions made by the Board of Education, some of us right here sitting in front of you. You want the best and the brightest of your fellow citizens in charge. The right person makes a difference. I believe that I have proven to you that I have the leadership qualities, skills, and experience you should look for in a school board candidate, and that makes me uniquely qualified to continue to lead this district moving forward. I thank you for your questions tonight. I thank you for those that wrote to us tonight, the association, Kristen, and many of the others that spend the time, and you for coming here and spending over an hour talking to us, and I look forward to your continued support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So it has been an honor and a privilege to be serving on the board for the last approximately 3 years. I am committed to continue to be an advocate for every student in the school district. I want to continue to provide the best experience, the best education for all students in our district. We are known as a lighthouse district. We are known throughout the state. We go to, the board members go to a conference actually next week, and throughout the conference, all I hear when I mention where I'm from, South Brunswick, they're like, wow, that is a great district. And and today I just want to mention, I was at the eye doctor and I mentioned to her that I'm from South Brunswick and my kids go there, and she's like, wow, that's a great school district. And she has a friend whose kids go there, and she found out that they were taking organic chemistry. So we have great programs offered to our students. So I want to keep this exceptional education that we have in our school district. We have great administrators, teachers, a very supportive parent community, and wonderful students. And I want to continue to provide the best, education and give the tools to our students to be successful in the future, be it in college, in the workforce, whatever they choose to be. And I hope you support me by voting for me. I am someone that is trustworthy, I am dedicated, I'm caring. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for the candidates to be here tonight. I know we're short notice, but I think the fact that you all showed up and you rearranged your schedules, thank you to Johnny Rogers for live feeding. I hope this worked, and everyone out there, hey! And thank you for the parents and community members and the teachers and everyone who helped put this together. Please come help yourself to some refreshments and shake the hands of the board candidates. Thank you.